One of the things that has always fascinated me about dancers is what they're willing to ask their bodies to do. I've spent I spent years around athletes, runners, martial artists, yoga practitioners, and dancers. All of them push themselves, but dancers always seem to occupy their own category. The things they ask of their feet alone are sometimes hard to believe. One of the easiest ways to spot a ballet dancer is their turnout. You don't have to see them on stage. You can spot them crossing a parking lot, standing in line somewhere. And when I say turnout, I mean external rotation of the feet. They're talking with friends. After a while, you start noticing that ballet dancers don't just perform turnout; they carry it around with them. And because turnout feels so connected to ballet, I always assumed it had pretty much always looked this way. That turned out to be wrong. Um, One of the first things that surprised me was learning that modern ballet's obsession with extreme turnout is relatively recent. Not recent as in decades, but recent as in centuries. The further back you go, the less modern ballet starts looking like modern ballet. So that sent me looking at older dancers, and one of the people who caught my attention long, long time ago was Nazimova. Most people today have never heard of her, but during the silent film era, she was a major star. I have films of hers with Rudolph Valentino. And her 1922 film Salome is still available to watch. And if you've never seen it, it's unlike almost anything made today. And what struck me wasn't that she lacked modern technique. It was nobody seems to even care. The things people talked about were her presence, her theatricality, her ability to create an atmosphere. And when I watch those performances now, I don't find myself thinking about turnout at all. I find myself watching the character, the mood, the strange dreamlike quality of the movement. That made me wonder if earlier audiences were rewarding different things. Not less, but just different. The same thought came back when I started watching older ballet footage, not super old, but stuff from like the 80s. Even dancers I grew up admiring started looking different. Baryshnikov is a good example. I still think he's one of the greatest dancers who ever lived, but when I watch him now, I find myself asking a strange question. Would today's ballet world be talking about the same things? Or would they immediately start asking for more? More extension, more flexibility, more turnout? Because that seems to happen everywhere. One example would be Arnold Schwarzenegger. He was once considered the ideal bodybuilder. Now put photographs of Arnold beside many modern professionals, and they almost look like competitors from different sports. The standard moved. What was once extraordinary became normal, then something even more extraordinary took its place. The more I looked into ballet, the more I started wondering if the same thing happens there. Then I ran into Louis the 14th. That was something that was somewhat of a surprise as well. Louis the 14th didn't just support ballet, he actually danced in it. As a teenager, he performed in Le Ballet de la Nuit. I didn't say that right. Anyways, it's a huge court production that lasted for hours. At the end, he appeared as the rising sun, and that's where the image of the rising king comes from. That detail stopped me because it meant ballet wasn't some side activity happening around power. Power itself was dancing, and kings danced, nobles danced. Learning to dance was part of aristocratic education. The body wasn't just moving, the body was communicating something. It was communicating status, it was communicating control, refinement, belonging. That changed how I thought about turnout. I've been thinking about it as a movement problem. Now I started wondering if it was also a presentation problem. kind of social signal, a way of displaying the body. Then I came across Pierre Bouchot, sorry. Most people have never heard of him. He's generally credited with formalizing 5 positions of ballet. That sounds like a tiny historical detail, but the more I thought about it, the more important it seemed, because the moment something gets formalized, it can be taught, it can be corrected, it can be judged, and it can be compared. The preference becomes a standard, and once something becomes a standard, people start pushing it a little cleaner, a little wider, a little more impressive. And that part feels familiar. I've seen versions of it in bodybuilding, in gymnastics, figure skating, and even even in yoga, which I think is crazy. A practice starts as a way of doing something, and people begin comparing, then they begin competing, and then they begin optimizing. And before long, what was once exceptional starts looking normal. And that's where I find myself now. I started with a simple observation. It's easy to spot a ballet dancer. I wasn't expecting that observation to lead me to silent films, to King's court culture, and centuries of changing ideas about beauty. But that's where it led. And the deeper I look into Turnout, the less it feels like a position. It feels like a record of changing tastes, changing standards, and changing ideas about what the body should look like, which leads me to a question that feels much more interesting than the one I started with. I no longer wonder why dancers stand like that. Now I wonder who decided more turnout was better, and why why everyone else eventually agreed.